Kaneki is a very well-warranted topic whenever it comes to talking about Tokyo Ghoul, and of course, it's not like we already didn't know this. But there are a lot of aspects that come to Kaneki that really give you another layer and perspective when it comes to the story of Tokyo Ghoul as a whole. And where does it all begin? Unfortunately, as you might have initially thought, the entirety of everything that's happened does not start with Kaneki. In fact, the entire world of Tokyo Ghoul is built upon a foundation that is much deeper and arguably philosophical than any of us could have ever even imagined. And this all starts with the society of Tokyo Ghoul, which ultimately leads to the creation of Aogiri, which was founded by Edo and made with the specific intentions of allowing ghouls the opportunity to live in Tokyo's current society. But more often than not, they would be seen as a terrorist organization, which is all thanks to Tokyo's current society, which views ghouls as monsters and also goes out of its way to slander ghouls and ultimately teach society that ghouls are just terrible beings to begin with. With that in mind, the lives of every single ghoul, no matter how evil or how kind, would no longer matter. And this is what allows Aogiri to truly shine. Aogiri did something that the world couldn't otherwise do for an entire race because ghouls were always looked at as monsters. And so Aogiri gave something to the ghouls that the world could not, and that would be hope. And this same hope would take form of something that you wouldn't normally expect. With that being said, Aogiri would aim to spread its influence by any means necessary. This would get to a point that Aogiri would begin to abduct ghouls and force them to join their ranks in order to push their agenda of allowing ghoul lives to be put on a higher pedestal, with their leader ultimately being the One-Eyed King. The One-Eyed King would without a doubt make every single accomplishment of Aogiri possible, and understanding the true roots of the tree that is Aogiri comes from understanding the One-Eyed King. And even Aogiri itself. You see, the truth is, Aogiri is actually very similar to that of a cult. Whether we realize it or not, all of these ghouls come together for one very specific belief. And as I mentioned before, their very beliefs are intended to only specifically be for ghouls. Yet their leader is arguably not even a ghoul. And this would be due to the fact that Arima would be a failed half-ghoul. Aogiri would put all of their faith into the idea of the One-Eyed King eventually saving them and giving them all the prosperity that they ultimately wanted. And so they would look to the One-Eyed Owl and the One-Eyed King as fuel for their dreams for a new world. The One-Eyed King and the One-Eyed Owl would be Edo. At least that's what everyone in Aogiri would think. But in actuality, Arima was pulling the strings as he was the true One-Eyed King of Aogiri. And so, in a sense, the followers of Aogiri would inevitably be believing in a lie. At least, from the outside looking in, it would seem that way. It makes you question, what is the very thing that Aogiri truly wanted? What would make Aogiri's dreams and beliefs come into reality? And I will tell you that it was only possible because they believed in their king. They believed in the ghoul that had one eye. And without a doubt, he eventually came to them. And the One-Eyed King that everyone was hoping for was Ken Kaneki. But why Kaneki exactly? What makes him so special? When it comes to Kaneki, he would be the perfect candidate for being the One-Eyed King. And this is due to his perspective. Kaneki as a human and a ghoul has seen every single side of the world possible. He has seen humanity at its worst and humanity at its best, and the same could be said from what he has experienced from dealing with ghouls. And by knowing both sides of ghouls and humanity, Kaneki would be the only person that could bridge both of the worlds together. Even so, there's even more to it than just that. Miraculously, Kaneki was destined to be the One-Eyed King. and this would begin from the very moment he obtained the surgery and became a ghoul. The fact that Kaneki had one eye made his ascension to the throne as the One-Eyed King almost a guarantee, and Arima would have a hand in all of this because he would train and prepare Kaneki for the very purpose of becoming the One-Eyed King, all so that the world can follow suit into a new era of peace. And after killing so many people, it would only make sense for Arima to want to end the killing and bring in this new era. Especially when, ironically enough, he's on the side of the people that he's killing. With Arima being defeated, Kaneki would be the next leader of Aogiri. And little did anyone know that by doing this, Kaneki was actually fulfilling a prophecy. Everything that he was doing was already set in motion, even before he became the leader of Aogiri, and this was all due to Edo's books. And with these books, Edo would inspire thousands upon thousands of readers, with Kaneki, of course, being one of them. Kaneki's inspiration for Edo's books would go as far as to base his life off of her novels. And of course, this seems extreme, but this is exactly what Aogiri and Arima would have wanted, with the sole intent of Edo's novels being a gateway to change society and the world as a whole, which would all start from Kaneki, with the most prominent example of this being the egg of the black goat. When Kaneki first meets Rize, the whole entire situation would be compared to a scene from the egg of the black goat. And this would showcase how much Kaneki's life was actually so similar to the books that he was reading, which would be the same books that were written by the founder of Aogiri. Aogiri's influence was being pushed through Kaneki's mind from everything that he was reading without him even realizing it. And this would happen before he was even involved with ghouls at all. Now, how would this have anything to do with Kaneki being the One-Eyed King, let alone a messiah? This was possible through another one of Edo's novels, with this one being King Byliger. And this novel would tell the story of a heroic one-eyed ghoul, and society itself would be put into shambles because the status quo for all ghouls would be turned upside down. Society would begin to finally understand the true pain that ghouls have been living through their entire lives. These books were made for a reason. These books were made for Kaneki. These books would give hope and faith to all ghouls alike. And this is what made them so dangerous. Edo's books wanted the One-Eyed King to appear eventually. And guess who would show up as the One-Eyed King just in time to liberate and save all the ghouls? You guessed it, Kaneki. These books were the key reason for everything to happen. If Kaneki and Rize would have never been reading the same book that Edo would have wrote, nothing would have happened. Kaneki would have never became a ghoul, meaning that he would have never became the One-Eyed King. King Byliger was a plea for the One-Eyed King to appear, and he eventually came. Keep in mind, Aogiri is a cult. All of the ghouls believed, they had hope, and they had faith that the One-Eyed King would come and save them all. And Kaneki would eventually answer all of their prayers. Edo's novels are the Bible, while Kaneki is a god. Have you read the book of Genesis, Kaine? You probably have, haven't you? Kaine, are you religious? Christianity, Islam, maybe Buddhism, atheist? It doesn't matter. What is your vision of God? God, what are you? I'm simply curious. I just want to know. The God I imagine is not the Almighty Father, but a child with extraordinary power. Kaneki is a god, and Aogiri were worshipping him the entire time, waiting for him to save them from the world that they're living in. This is why Kaneki's final transformation is symbolic with the cross. Just like Christ, Kaneki had come to save us. More importantly, he had come to save the lives of all ghouls and humans alike. And much like God, through the beliefs of the people and everyone having faith in him, he was able to make a miracle happen. Aogiri believed in their God, and it was only natural for him to come save them.